Well, one person on our show that has now been here for more than half of the show's history is Neil Melancon.
Yeah, Neil started in 1996 as an intern with no TV experience whatsoever, but you learned quickly. And now, as the old man on the show, Neil, you were actually here when Reg was here, the only one in our department.
That's right. Reg was the director of the department, and it was still a three-person department at that time. It was Mike Dana, Reg Wallace, and David Langley when I came on, and it had been that way for years. It wasn't until Mike came along and became the department head. I think I was there a year before Reg retired, and Mike took over and started expanding the department, and the first two people he hired were me and Margaret Lisi as the new graphic artist, which has, been an increasingly important position over the years.
I'm waiting for the old man joke because I know that it's coming.
I guess the thing for me is it's hard to believe that when I started the show was only 15 years old, and that number 15 to 40 is just so big in my mind right now.
A lot happened in that time.
Yeah, a lot has, and it's been a long journey, but it's been a fulfilling career beyond anything that I could have expected. When I started, I had no idea that I'd be able to cover the types of stories that I've covered and go to the places I've been.
This is one of the first stories that introduced me to how diverse agriculture can be. Restoration of the Louisiana black bear has been a successful program that largely depended on cooperation with farmers. These cubs were relocated from Tensaw Parish to further the range of the black bear, creating a corridor from north to south. Of course, the iconic Louisiana alligator featured in several of my stories, even early on. There I am trying to hand one to Kristen, who didn't want one for some reason. And that's from this year. These gators just seem to be getting bigger. Of course, I covered a lot of the standard farm stories too: sugarcane, corn, soybeans, rice, and strawberries. Yes, I had a goatee back then, which disappeared in 2006 when I got married. While many of these stories seem the same, they represent the hard work of farmers and ranchers who opened the door to their homes and their lives. It spurred me to start The Bottom Line, a weekly segment where I reviewed the commodity markets, building on what I was doing for the radio network. It taught me a lot about how unpredictable the markets were and how that can keep a farmer up at night. Something else I was able to pioneer was taking TWILA internationally. I went to Japan in 2003 and shot a story with Zeno Grain, headquartered in Tokyo, with facilities in Louisiana. Since then, I've covered stories of farmers traveling to South America, Turkey, Spain, and Thailand. With traders always looking to expand their markets, the international aspect of farming is always present. I've also gotten access to politicians. Early on, I interviewed former Commissioner of Agriculture Bob Odom. You can't tell behind the goatee, but I was nervous then. It helped me to gain the confidence to interview many of our state's congressional leaders later, including senators. Sadly, a good portion of my career has been devoted to covering disasters. Of course, we were there for Katrina, but that same year, Rita brought devastation to southwest Louisiana that would be repeated in last year's Hurricane Laura. There's a connection in all of these storms: the suffering, the devastation, and the coming together to face difficulty. One of my favorite moments in my career was being with cattleman and veteran Leslie Griffith, who lost almost everything in Laura. Fellow vet Mark Norman, who works for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, found Leslie's Vietnam-era dog tags an emotional moment of hope among so much loss. At the risk of droning on, one last thing I'd like to say is the change in technology. I shot all of these using a drone, a new piece of tech that's come along in my career, helping show a new perspective on things. Rising to challenges has shaped me both professionally and personally, in the hopes that each story I tell makes a difference.
Of course, like anyone, if I had to do it all again, I'd correct the mistakes I've made along the way, but learning has been a huge part of my career here. I hope TWILA stays around forever, not only so that others can do what I do, but to continue to share these stories with you. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for this unlikely career. And guys, it's strange looking back over that career and thinking just of all the stuff. It goes by so quickly because you're so busy.
Well, I think it's strange looking at your hair. I think that's the part that is strange.
I think you've gotten younger based on just your physical appearance.
Well, I shaved the goatee, long ago, as you saw in the story, and that's one thing, that makes me look younger, I think.
Well, you talked about some of your stories, but if you had to be nailed down to pick a favorite story, what would you say?
I guess it was that bear story just because it sticks out so much in my head. You know, any one of these ones that I handle animals are all just great, the conservation stories. But, you know, the bear story was one of those that just kind of shocked me as to, like, what this job really entailed.
Well, my favorite story was your reporting for duty story where someone put you on a horse.
Yeah.
And comical
Yes.
content ensued.
You know, the one part of that story that makes it funnier that you don't even see is the horse got mad at me, so it ran me into trees. So I was getting hit by branches as I was going under it.
His name is Rio and he dances on the sand.
Yeah, Rio was kind of a jerk.
Yeah, and AJ was there shooting that
Right,
story
yeah.
with you.
Laughing,
so there was
laughing the whole time.
Yeah, so we know that hilarity ensued. Now,
Right.
favorite place you've been?
The place that surprised me the most was Turkey. It was never on top on my priority list, but when we went there and all the places we went, Ephesus, the old ancient Greek story right there near Izmir on the west coast south of Istanbul, when you walk into it, the modern world disappears. Going there, having no like cues, you're 2,500, 3,000 years in the past, just instantly, it was crazy.
Yeah, and the other thing I find, that's also when our international following really blossomed. At that point, Kristen, you started to see us get likes all
From
around the
everywhere,
world.
yeah.
You know, it has that historical connection to, you know, all of Western civilization, but modern connection, a year after we were there, that area was mortared by the Syrian forces. So it was just crazy. I mean, it's just crazy to be part of that history, both modern and ancient.
And to this day, if I eat hazelnuts, I think of Turkey because 80% of the world's hazelnuts
come from
Turkey. Thank you very much, Neil. Looking forward to the next 40 years as well.
Me too.
Still to come on TWILA, we look back on some of the lighter moments from the past years of producing this show.
But first, we'll tell you a story we've been telling for decades, the story of conservation on Louisiana farms. Stay with us.